I request Dr. Balaji Rajendran to kindly give the summary of this two-day conference. I think I cannot fully introduce him. He is my colleague, Dr. Balaji Rajendran. He is working as Principal Technical Officer and he is already holding charges running the CERT, DR, and also he is involved. He is the man behind this PKI, BOK, DD, and he is the Chief Investigator of this project. I think this is a brief introduction I can give at this point of time. Over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Misbah. I'll keep it as brief as possible. Actually, maybe it's a sort of a technical summary of what has happened today. Maybe I may be repeating most of the things which has been described over the 2 days. So please bear with me for that. Okay, I'd like to start from the issue of transparency, because one of the, you can say it's a spectrum of transparency. At one end, you have something called the transparency, whatever transactions or information, you would like to see that completely, so that is transparent. At the other end of the spectrum, you actually have opaqueness, where you don't want to know who is doing what. So in this timeline or whatever chart you feel, transparency spectrum, for having transparency, the most critical thing what you require is identity. So without identity, there is no transparency. And identity is always done by a process called authentication. Meaning identity is evaluated or figured out through a process called authentication in the electronic world. And we don't really deserve, I mean, we don't really want or we like to have opaqueness, but we like to have something sort of an anonymity. And not in most of the cases, anonymity is something like we want to do something, but we don't want that to know that we are doing it, a particular person is doing it. That is called anonymity. And then there is something in between which is called as privacy. Privacy is basically, it should be known that we are doing something, but it should not be known that what we are doing. So that is basically the differences. So in electronic transactions, what do you mean by transparency is everyone knows who has done what, and identity is central to transparency. For opaqueness, no one knows who has done what. And for anonymity, everyone knows something is particular has been done, but none knows who has done that. Privacy is basically no one knows what's happening, but everyone knows who are involved and knows something is happening. And for confidentiality, information is shared by an entity in a transaction should not be disclosed without the consent. This is the legal definitions, whatever I'm trying. So far, we discussed about the technical things. And next is integrity. When you are exchanging information, the accuracy of the information should be maintained. And for non-repudiation, that is basically the inability to repudiate an executed action. So this is what the legal definitions of the legal world are. So now, non-repudiation is a very complex thing. So we have to treat it with a bit of caution. And the traditional legal definition for repudiation is any action which is a forgery, or any action which was not a forgery but was obtained via a fraud instigation, or by undue influence, or by unconscionable conduct by a party to a transaction. It means a lot of things. So this is a heavily loaded word and heavily loaded term. So achieving non-repudiation is a very tougher activity. So now trust is like a butterfly. Of course, it's a feeling of thing, but there are a lot of factors which really contribute to trust. It can include confidentiality, authenticity, integrity, many things. But the essential factors of trust are basically privacy. That is, we in the electronic world we equate both privacy and confidentiality both in equal terms, which is ensuring that only the authorized persons view the data, message, or documents. Authenticity, we ensure that the data, message, or document originate from the claimed signed or sender. Suppose if I am sending a message to you, then you should be sure that I am the real sender and you are the real right recipient. And integrity, if we are communicating with each other, there should not be anybody who is tampering the message. Whatever I am communicating should come exactly as such. And non-repudiation is basically ensuring that I cannot deny my action, whatever that I have done. So if these four factors can be guaranteed by a system within the electronic world, then we can actually rely on that particular system. And of course, there are multiple ways or approaches to electronic trust in the electronic world. The main two classifications are the centralized and the decentralized approaches. In the centralized approach, of course, we have the public key infrastructure, and the other one, of course, DNS that I will not discuss at this point. Decentralized approaches, we have the PGP, which we started long back, and now we are also seeing blockchain. I'll just get back to this. And as far as PKI is concerned, PKI, of course, as I said, told you that the trickiest part is basically authentication as well as non-repudiation, which are achieved largely through the actions of CAs, certifying authorities, who are the central to the PKI infrastructure. So the responsibility of the PKI is to ensure the entity who is receiving a certificate are the right person or the right entity. They have the responsibility to issue the certificate or revoke certificate, generate and upload CRP, etc. So digital signatures establishes identity and authenticity of the signer, integrity of the document, non-repudiations through CAs. So for rules for digital signing, you have to use your private key for signing, and for verification, your public key will be used. Asymmetric encryption deals with providing privacy or confidentiality. The rules are you have to use the receiver's public key for encryption, and the receiver will use his or her private key for decryption. So now these essential trust factors, for all the 4 factors which systems guarantee this, basically digital signature plus asymmetric encryption is guaranteed by the public key infrastructure. So, sorry, I'm just copying from you, sir. What is PKI? What is PKI actually? So, I mean, this is a very layman's definition. I can say PKI is basically public keys, as its roots from public key cryptography, and when combined and implemented with the certifying authorities, and when properly implemented with the standards, public key cryptography standards, and with supportive legislations and with enough number of applications, you get PKI. So this is the layman's definition. And over the years of time, PKI has evolved into a complete ecosystem for facilitating trust in electronic transactions. So this is an ecosystem which has evolved over time. As you can see, there are 4 major components. So the first one is basically math and algorithms part, where the key stakeholders are the cryptographers and researchers who create the technologies behind the cryptography, public key cryptography technologies. Standards and protocols, the application developers and standard developers through various forums, they create the standards. And policies and laws are left to the certifying authorities, regulatory bodies and protection agencies across different countries and nations. Implementations and applications, the end users and systems are taken care. And just a short SWOT analysis of the PKI ecosystem. Strength, PKI has proved that it is a reliable and trustworthy system. If you don't want to believe my words, I can say that it has stood the test of time. In the technology world, standing beyond 25 plus years is not an easy thing to do. And it has shown or proven the ability to adopt and standardize. And of course, just to mention a few, it has adapted to the changing landscapes, hashing algorithms, cryptographic algorithms, etc. Standards were formulated through PKCS, IETF forums, IEEE, many more standard organizations. Today morning we are discussing about FIDO also. So this is about the strength. Opportunities, of course, it has the ability to diversify and penetrate into every sector and every field. And of course, cloud, IoT and energy sectors are all being recently used. Threat, I only see that what could be a threat to the PKI is the usability part. As time passes, I hope it can be improved. Weakness, I feel that as one afternoon we are discussing, the absence of globally anchored trust models, basically about trust certification. If that is there, then it could be done. So attacks on the weakest links in the ecosystem, especially the year 2011 was a very important year for the certifying authorities, because most of the CAs across the world, their infrastructure was attacked and hacked and used for issuing fraudulent certificates, CA infrastructure. So now, just focusing on the Indian PKI ecosystem, India is a very good ecosystem with the root certifying authority, meaning established as part of the control of certifying authorities, and a several set of CAs, and below that the subscribers are there. These are the licensed set of CAs which are there. And India has got it right as far as PKI is concerned. Let me tell you how it has got it right. Threat as far as usability is concerned, Indian answer is basically the digital signatures were leveraging Aadhaar, e-sign. So the usability part, say for example, use of PKI in mobile phones or through using this digital signature was able to do that. And then for weakness, of course, actions on weakest links in the ecosystem, CA infrastructure, of course, in India we have Central Regulatory Authority, CCA, which was established way back in 2001. So this is, so India's really got it right as far as PKI is concerned. And looking through the future, because I just like to say how it looks like. So again, morning we are discussing, so many papers have come on blockchain. This is a very layman's view of blockchain. Again, so a block is basically a logical container of information, and information is verified before it is added to the block. And how it is added, that's a very important thing. By a group of competing people or entities who compete with each other to verify and add it to the block. That's the important part. So there is a reward for that. That we will not get into it. And information within a block is arranged in a tree-based structure in such a way that it is easy to discover a piece of information or to find errors in that. So chain is basically a logical and cryptographical linked structure. So something like this. So one block is linked to another block is linked to another block. So you can't change any piece of information in any block unless you can only do at the maximum at the last block or the last piece of information. So I just want to describe the elements of trust with technologies. Of course, we were discussing about hashing. Hashing, I'm sure, of course, you know that it can only guarantee you integrity. And for encryption, of course, only confidentiality can guarantee. As a digital signature, integrity can be done. Rest, of course, it will not provide you confidentiality. Authentication, of course, has to come through other channels. And non-repudiation, of course, to the CA model. The CA model of public infrastructure alone can guarantee you the non-repudiation. Certificates, digital certificates, cannot guarantee you integrity, cannot guarantee you confidentiality, but can provide you authentication. It can tell you who I am. And of course, it is essential, especially the CA, the certificates are essential for signatures, and that is essential for non-repudiation. Signed encryption, basically I'm just combining the words digital signature plus encryption. It can provide you all the things, integrity, confidentiality, authentication, and non-repudiation. And of course, you can see that it is being used in many applications like e-tendering, e-procurement, etc. Blockchain, of course. Blockchain is a technology which can be used primarily for integrity. Of course, the rest of the things all you come up in a very roundabout way, especially to achieve them. So it's not really possible to straightforwardly achieve all other things. So to summarize, PK applications are ever increasing thanks to cloud and IoT. Emerging technologies influence, basically blockchain is actually coming up. So PKI can absorb blockchain in various processes of the PKI ecosystem. And just to give an example, certificate transparency. So the CA regulated or CCS regulated certificate transparency, which is something similar to Google, can be implemented by various the certifying root certifying authorities across the world. And of course, one thing should be a guiding factor, which this is my opinion. So the PKI motto should be like to make things easier, faster, transparent, and reliable. So that should be the guiding motto, and any technology, anything, it can stand the test of time. So thank you for that.